Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pillow Talk Lounge. We're your hosts. I'm James Green, and this is my lovely wife, Cynthia Green, and we just want to welcome you to another episode.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? Right. It's like, here it's a beautiful Saturday morning. I think the rain's coming later, but I don't care. It's springtime, y'all. The first day of spring was Thursday. So I'm super excited about the warm weather that's coming in spite of the rain. I'm good with that, but I'm excited about spring. So I want you to share this morning. Are you excited about spring or summer, and why? Like, why are you excited about spring and summer? So I'll tell you why I'm excited about spring and summer, because I love the outside. I love the warmth. I love the green trees, the flowers blooming, being able to get out of my yard, go walking, just enjoying outdoor activities. Like, that's one of my fun things to do. And I like to travel during the warm weather. So I'm looking forward to the spring and the summer and the heat. Bring it on.
Right. I'm just glad, hopefully, that the snow's over.
Oh my gosh.
Because I don't enjoy putting on heavy coats and hats and gloves and all of that. I just like the better weather.
Right. So a little housekeeping this morning, you guys. We want you to hit the share button on your screen and share this out, because this morning we're talking about something pretty serious. Like, sometimes we get on here and we shoot the breeze. We talk about casual things, but today is pretty serious because someone actually asked me to talk about this. I was with a group of ladies and we were laughing. Okay, I'll just share this with y'all. We were actually learning the boots on the ground line dance. And so we got into a little conversation about relationships, and they were like, Cynthia, what are you talking about tomorrow? And so I had some other ideas, and they gave me several. And one of them was the 5 love languages. So we'll talk about that next week. But today we're talking about settling differences. So we need you to hit the share button and share this out with your friends, because it's pretty serious, because we know that communication is the key. Everybody says that. And I remember we were doing an interview and the lady says, yes, communication is the key, but what does that mean? So, babe, what does communication is the key really mean?
Communication means that, first of all, it has to be the right time, the place, and it has to come from a place of love. Because when you communicate, sometimes you don't want to communicate out of anger or disagreement or something you're upset about, because all that does is lead to more anguish, more being dishonorable, even maybe more name calling. So not only does it have to come from a place of love, you have to pick the right time. Just like if your spouse comes home from work, they may have had a rough day, tired. That's not the right time to bombard them with all these questions, with we need to talk and all of that, because they're probably already upset from the hard day they done had.
Well, everybody don't come home from work with a hard day, but I get what you're saying.
Right. But that's just the gist of it, to say that it has to be the right time. It has to be the right atmosphere. Maybe sometimes, need to talk. This is just throwing out ideas. Maybe at a restaurant, if you go out to eat, say on a date night, that way there's people around. You can get loud. Well, you can, but most likely you won't get loud and argue in front of, say, the whole restaurant. So it always has to be the right time, the right place, the right atmosphere, and come from a place of love.
And I will say this. I think date night should be a fun night. So don't do it on your special date night,
right?
But just maybe have a special date where you go to have have those hard conversations.
And also, that maybe you want to give your mate, your spouse, a heads up. Say, baby, we need to talk about this topic. It's been bothering me.
When do you have time?
Or
when can we sit down and
talk about it? Right. So now the person is aware of it.
Yes.
The person can come from a place where I had time to think on it, and we can come together and come into some type of agreement.
So let's just talk about what is communication. And communication is just really just dialogue. It's talking. I tell people communication is like prayer. When we pray, we're just communicating with God. We're just talking to God, telling him what's on our heart and how we feel, what we want, what we like, what we don't like, what we wish would change, what we wish he would help us with. Same thing when we're sitting down talking to our spouse. It's about having open and honest conversations and sharing your feelings, your thoughts, your dreams, your goals, your disappointments, all of those things. But it's also something else. It's actively listening to each other.
Right. Because you can't say, keep cutting the person off, thinking that you know what they're going to say, that you know where they're going with the conversation. Let them finish first. You know, because when you cut them off or when you don't let them finish, you're rushing to judgment. And that's something we always tell couples, don't rush to judgment. You don't know where they've been. You don't know the kind of day they had. You don't know what the other person may be going through. So don't rush to judgment. Let them finish. And by letting them finish, that's what Cynthia's talking about. You have to have active listening to where they're coming from.
And let me just say this. My husband had to learn that principle. He used to cut me off all the time. And even now, I'll hear him on a conference call with his job. And when he get off, I'll be like, babe, you just cut them off. You don't give nobody a chance to talk, because that's how he used to do me. But we had a conversation about it. So I don't know, maybe coworkers, if you're listening, just call him out on it. And if you call him out on it, he realizes he will get better. He'll do better. But the other thing about communication is also finding common ground.
Right.
So we always say you can't when you're arguing with somebody, you're going back and forth, you're yelling, you're not listening to each other, you're just throwing out at the moment your emotions, and so you're not going to be able to find common ground, because you're just throwing at them what's on your mind. And when you're yelling and you're arguing and you're mad, you're only throwing out what you're thinking at the moment. You're not thinking the whole thing through, and that's what causes arguments. So when you're having good communication, you're sitting down to talk, to find common ground on something that works for the two of you.
And also when you're sitting down, and this is another good thing, that you have to let them know how the situations, how the conversation makes you feel. You can't just start pointing fingers, saying, well, you do this and you do that, or you never do this, or you always do this and you never do that. It's like saying, here's something you always do or you never do.
That's called blaming.
Right.
That's the blame game.
And I call it pointing a finger.
Yeah, same thing.
Instead of saying that, when this happens, this is how it makes me feel. Or I feel this type of way when this comes up, or when this happens. This is how I feel.
I'm smiling with us talking about this because it brings back memories, because I remember, we're teaching you things that we had to learn too, right? Because I remember one time Jane said to me, babe, can you just not, I don't remember what it was. Can you just try not to do such and such and such? Because I really don't like it. And I was smiling to myself when he said it, because he changed his tone and how he approached me with it, instead of just throwing it out of me and being mad. And I've done the same thing with him. I'm like, honey, can you, it's like you when you ask not in the moment, when they're doing it, and you ask with love and a kind tone, it makes a big difference. So that first one that we're talking about right now is open and honest communication.
Right.
And like James says, it's using I feel statements, telling them how you feel, expressing your thoughts and your feelings directly without pointing the finger, as James says, or the blame game, as I was saying, or name calling.
Right.
You can't call each other names.
Right. And Cynthia says something that was so key, was tone.
Yes.
Because, if you love that person, you have to come from a place of love. Your tone can't be from a place of hate or a place of discomfort or a place of anger.
But that's why people get into arguments, because they have let small things just build up. So they got all this resentment and anger in their heart. So when they start talking about it, all those thoughts just come out.
Because just think about it for a minute. It's like a trash bag. You put trash in it and you don't take the trash out. So you keep building on it and building on it and building on it until it's full. That's the same way with, how you feel. Because if you don't say nothing right away, if you don't have that open and honest communication and discussion coming from a place of love, it builds up. Now, one's on top of the other, which is on top of the next one, which is on top of the next one. Now, it got so full, it's about to explode. And the least little thing will make it just all blow up. And all the anger, all the disappointment, all the hate comes out, and it turns into a big blow up. When you could have brought it up in the very beginning and just had an open and honest conversation about it.
And we're gonna give you a exercise you can do to make sure that these things don't build up. But I want to go back to something James said about oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. Okay, it'll come back to me. So number 2 was active listening, right?
Right.
So people like, okay, what is active listening? Active listening is when you're really paying attention and you're listening to understand. You're listening for clarity. You're listening to understand your partner's perspective, and you try to understand their viewpoint. And you're not just, like James said earlier, you're not just making assumptions and thinking ahead in your head while they're talking. No, you're sitting there and you're listening to them while they're
And I was going to say, what's the key to that? There's nothing wrong with repeating back. Okay, this is what I hear you're saying. Is that what you're actually saying? Is that true? Because this is what I'm hearing. Because sometimes even men, we hear things differently than women. So you could be saying something and I hear all you're doing is chastising me. All you're doing is getting on me. This is what I'm hearing. Is it true? And then you can say, no, that's not true. What I'm saying is it would be nice if this happened.
That's what he says nowadays too, baby. It'd be nice if you would. I
don't know.
Oh,
but just for example, if the man takes out the trash, you know,
I know what one is.
If the man takes out the trash and the wife says, God, this trash is full. Why don't you take this trash out? See, it would be nice to say, babe, the trash is starting to smell. I'd appreciate it if
you take
the trash out.
No, what I do, I'll say, babe, when you get a chance, can you take the trash out? Because it's starting to smell.
Right.
You know, so I'll say it something like that. But
instead of just coming off with, dang, this trash is smell. Why don't you take this trash out? See, why you always to
you need to take this trash out because it stinks.
See, and that's the tone. That's how it says, and how it makes you feel.
Right.
You know, I don't like cooking when the trash is smelling.
Yeah, I'm in the kitchen trying to cook and this trash smells terrible.
And see, that's just an example, but there's a lot of other situations where, you know.
And this is also when you have open and honest conversation, because James will come over and say, this trash is not even full. But babe, that's not the point. When you put a lot of like onions and garlic in the trash, like I cook fresh foods almost every day. So when you're putting those things in the trash, they're going to smell like the trash can. So sometimes the trash got to go out before, like James likes for the trash to just keep being packed down. And the trash, when he takes that bag out, it's so doggone heavy. It's completely full. No, sometimes the trash got to go out before it is fully beaming over to capacity.
So the key is that, you know, you let them know how you feel. You let them know from a place of love. You watch your tone and you be open and honest about it and not let it build up to where it turns into just a small disagreement turns into a big argument.
There you go. So the third thing that we talked about that helps couples settle disputes is called finding common ground, right? So finding common ground is like, as you're sitting down, you're discussing this issue. You know that you got differing opinions, right? And viewpoints. You're not going to always think that have the same final thought or idea, like this is okay, so I agree with you, that's how it should be. No, this, you may feel like it's going to be this way and you may feel like it's going to be this way, but you got to find some common ground, which sometimes that's just saying, okay, babe, I understand your point of view. If that's how you want to do it, fine. When it's my turn, then I will do it that way, and we're going to be okay with that. It
doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong.
That's right. That's
you know, you can't look at it that way. Just because they have a difference of opinion doesn't mean that they're right and you're wrong. You have to look at it like everyone looks at things differently. Just like, say, hanging curtains, for example. You know, you may say, well, I want it this way. You say, well, I want it this way. Well, maybe you need to put up the rod, you know, whatever, however the case may be. you have to, everyone has a different opinion. So like Cynthia said, you got to meet somewhere. And I always say, if you have an issue, come with the solution.
That's so true.
So if you both come with a solution, you can say, here's how I think it should be. And then your mate says, here's how I think it should be. Then you meet somewhere in the middle. Okay, so if we take part of mine and part of hers and meet in the middle, we can still get it resolved where we're both to be happy because we met in common ground, like she said.
That's so true. And so also common ground is having shared goals and vision and values for your marriage, for your relationship, for your home, for your family. When you know you got shared goals, you're going in the same direction, that's going to help you have common ground in some of the bigger things in life. You know, those big things like when it comes to finances and changing careers or buying a home. You have to talk about your shared goals, and you got to know what your shared values are and where your values differ, because those are some of the things that will and can cause conflict.
And we don't want to get off topic about goals, but goals are key, because if you both sit down and have that open communication and honest and talk about your goals, well, what do you want to accomplish in the next 2 or 3 years? And then you both come to the table with that. Now you can set a plan how to reach both of your goals, especially not only individual goals, your shared goals. Like, where's your marriage? Where's your relationship headed? Sit down and talk about it. What does it look like for each one of you? And then come to some common ground.
And this is why James and I are called marriage visionaries, and marriage visionary and strategists, because we love sitting down with couples and help them to create a vision for their marriage. And then we have them sit down and write out their individual goals and then their joint goals together.
Right.
And next, we help them plan a strategy for at least one or two of them on how to sit down together and plan out and strategize how you're going to get to where you want to go. Whatever that goal is, we show you how to create strategies using the SMART goals, right? And so those are things that, it helps you with creating those common grounds and also building a strong future together, so that you're future focused and don't always stay in the now or what happened in the past.
And going to the next step, you got to be willing to negotiate, willing to accept. You can't think your way is always the right way.
Yep.
There's couples we've talked to where, well, she doesn't want to do it this way and this way is the best way. Just because you think it's the best way, that doesn't mean she or he may think it's the best way.
Yes.
That's why you always have to sit down and talk about it, because you can think one person's idea or one person's way of doing things, just because you think it's the best, it may not always be the best, or it may be uncomfortable for the other person.
Yep.
So if it's uncomfortable for the other person, now you have to find a better way of doing things that makes you both feel comfortable.
That's right. So the last one we're going to talk about today, and we'll do part 2 next week, because it will be the end of March next weekend, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So is seeking compromise. So also when you're finding common ground, you're also seeking a way to actually compromise.
Right.
And that means that you got to be willing to negotiate. People don't like when they say marriage is like a business, but come on, honestly, it really is, because in business, you got to have a vision for that business. You got to have a mission statement. You got to set goals. You got to have strategies to win and to grow that business and to scale that business. Same thing in your relationship. You've got to you have to negotiate and find solutions that meet both of your needs, something that's going to work for the two of you. Remember, the Bible says when you get married, the two become one. So you are now one, right? That means you want to walk in unity.
Right.
It also says, can two walk together except they agree? So you have to find a way to be in agreement. It doesn't, like I said earlier, it doesn't mean that you're always going to think the same thing, be the same thing.
That's because you're individuals and everybody thinks differently. Exactly.
But there's a way to find solutions. Right. And James said you shouldn't come to a fight. You shouldn't come to an argument unless you know, or discussion unless you have some solutions. So when you say, babe, let's sit down and talk, you should have already thought this thing out and came up with some of your solutions. But at the same time, you got to be open to hear their solutions. Like, ask them, babe, what do you suggest? How do you suggest we handle this
And
situation?
when you give your solution, you can say, so what do you think about what I said? Let me hear your idea.
Mm-hmm.
So then, even and the funny thing is, the person might say, well, I didn't think about that. I didn't have an idea.
Right.
Okay, so what do you think about what I said?
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong, like Cindy said, with compromise. So there's nothing wrong with trying it that way to see if that works, to see if that's the best way. And if not, maybe try a different way.
Right. And you know what it makes me think about too, because we met with a couple the other day. When we work with couples, we're not there to sit and give you solutions.
Right.
We need you to come up with your solution, because only you know what you really want and what's best for you, right? If you really have no idea and it's something that we can teach you on, help you learn, train your ear to understand and to maybe start thinking that way to come up with solutions, then yes, we do that. But ultimately, we want you to come up with your own solution, because when you come up with it, it's something that you feel you can do. It's something that you might get excited about doing, and you're more apt to stick to it.
Because we may have ideas, and our ideas might not be your ideas, or our ideas might not be the way you do things. That's why you always have to come up on your own, and sometimes even if you don't have a solution and your spouse don't have a solution, if you sit down and talk about the problem, you might be able to both come up with a solution sitting right there talking about
what's the best way to handle it. Exactly. And then that'll help you come up with solutions on how you can conduct yourself in the future. So let me just say this too. I just have to say this, because I was talking to somebody, called me up all upset because their mate was yelling and fussing, and they're talking about what their mate is doing wrong, and I'm on the phone with them, and they're yelling back at their partner who's yelling and fussing in the background. And I was like, just don't say nothing. They're like, no, I can't not say nothing. I always have to be the one to just be quiet or just walk away. Okay, well, if that's the case, if you are the more mature person and you are mature enough to walk away, you are mature enough to zip it up, why do you feel sometimes you got to just dig in and just keep going at it, and you know it's not going to solve anything? Yes, sometimes you have to be the bigger person and walk away. Sometimes you have to be the bigger person and stop the fight, stop the arguing, stop the escalation.
Like I say, stop the madness
in its tracks. And sometimes that's just calming yourself down.
Right.
It's called emotional intelligence.
Because you got to remember, with every action, there is a reaction. So if you're excited and you're yelling and screaming and getting on that person, all that's going to do is put them on the defensive and make them yell back.
So James and I do this thing, and I call it tit for tat, because we don't argue, fuss, and fight. But boy, can we go tit for tat, back and forth on a subject, on something that's ticking us off. That's why I call it tit for tat, right? Because he's trying to say how what he's just saying what he's saying, and I'm just saying what I'm saying, and we're just going back and forth. And then you know what? We end up laughing about it.
Right. Because when you go back and forth, what really gets resolved? Nothing. Because you're expressing how you feel, she's expressing how she feels, and you're not coming with no type of solution, and you're just going back and forth and nothing gets resolved.
Or you're just kind of doing the blame game.
Right.
But
we end up laughing.
Yeah,
but some couples end up arguing.
It's real light, because we just don't take that stuff serious. But for some people, it's real. It's serious, y'all. We know it's serious.
Leave that mad at each other, not speaking to each other.
Yes.
After that argument.
Mm-hmm. But you guys, we want you to have the best of the best of the best relationships. I know that there are amazing relationships out there, and everybody can have one if they're willing to put in the work. The work is not hard work. It's learning. It's training your ear. It's training your mouth, because out of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's controlling your heart and really speaking and talking in love.
And if you love that person, why would you not speak out of love?
Honey, it just don't work sometimes. I'm sorry.
I know, and it can be hard, but you have to think about that.
Right, and that's what we're here for. So coming up, we've got a webinar coming up in April, and it's a free webinar. But if you're interested, be on the lookout for the social media posts that will go out. and we just want to, go deeper with you guys. So be on the lookout for that. And babe, did you have a joke of the day
No,
today?
I told you no.
Oh, okay. Nothing on the sports
No,
channel.
no.
Okay.
I go to work every day.
Oh Lord, I forgot, right? Normally he has a joke of the day because he gets it from this show he watches. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, babe. But anyway, thank you guys for joining us today. This has been really good. And if you have topics you want us to talk about, send us a message and just say, Cynthia and James, can you cover such and such and such? And we'll be glad to cover
And we
it.
just want you to remember the things that we said today.
Yes.
So moving forward.
Oh, yeah. Let's mention the four again.
Moving forward, you could put them into action, put them into practice and practice them and see how things work in your relationship.
So in order to settle differences in your marriage, your relationships, you have to have open and honest communication.
Right.
You have to have active listening, find common ground, and seek compromise. Next week, we're going to talk about a couple more, and we're going to give you some tried and true strategies that we've shared. We shared a few today too, but this is what we want you to start practicing as of today. We'll talk about again next week. Find a day, find a time, and find a place that the two of you agree on, that you can sit down and say, this is our time to have our serious conversations.
I would say, don't spring it on them. Give them a little heads up. Babe, maybe we could talk about, No,
I said they're going to decide on the day, time, and place. So both of you are
but I'm saying bring up the topic. Let them know the topic that you want to talk about.
Right. Well, yeah. Well,
because it'll give you a chance to think about it. It'll give you a chance to be more calm about it when you enter into the conversation.
Do that. Let them know what you want to talk about. But sometimes I think it's better you come to the table with the things you want to talk about, and you let them know at the beginning of the conversation. Here are the things that I want to talk about, and do you have something you want to talk about today? Okay, now which one are we going to discuss first? Because you probably can't get through them all.
Right.
If y'all really start talking about these things, there's so many issues that you will never have again.
Exactly.
Because you've talked about it, you've come up with solutions, and you're more conscious of it, and you're going to work harder to not have those issues again, honestly. All right. So thank you guys for watching today. Remember, if you build it, it will last. God bless you guys.
See you next time.
All right.